what is changing? What's happening with the NAR settlement?
Well, I think you could put it in one word, and that's transparency. It's transparency from the real estate industry to the consumers. So a seller and a buyer will fully know who's getting paid and what they're being paid for. That's the number one thing. The buyer will know up front what the commission is. Buyers will have to be represented with a written agreement, which in Florida they didn't have to be before. They could be, but they didn't have to be. So as of August the 17th, we will be using the buyer-broker agreement for every time that a house is toured by an agent that's working with the buyer.
Hello, you beautiful people. Welcome back to Tampa Bay Unlocked, the podcast where we dive into the dynamic world of real estate and business in the vibrant Tampa Bay area. Join us as we sit down with top agents and industry leaders who share their insights, strategies, and stories of success. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting out, our interviews will unlock the secrets to thriving in one of Florida's hottest markets. Get ready to be inspired, informed, and motivated by the experts shaping the future of Tampa Bay. Tune in and let's unlock the wisdom from our next guest, Murray Coleman. He is the broker of, I don't even know how many offices.
Oh, 15.
15 offices and thousands of agents.
Yeah, we have about 2,500 MLS IDs at the moment.
2,500 MLS IDs.
We work from Englewood down on the West Coast all the way out to Oviedo's furthest north we go.
And you were just in town today to share with our agents here at our office, but I think we had an attendance of over 60 talking about the changes coming. But you come with great wisdom and knowledge as you share that you have, you see 250 transactions, give or take, on a week.
Yeah, we do 14,000 sides, and I think the math works out, around about 250 to 300 sides closing a week.
It's incredible.
Average,
I mean, you say you don't want to be me, but I don't want to be you.
What the beauty of that is, when I first started doing this, I had a lot less agents, and my Fridays were horrific because I would be dealing with all kinds of problems that occur with closing. And I think what we've done in the last 5 years, and I've got a business partner who assists me, and I've got a good team of people in each of the offices. We've taught out the issues. So I have a class that I teach called the 17 Ways Real Estate Agents Get Into Trouble. It used to be 11.
And now it's 17. You're adding some problems.
People find imaginative ways to add to my woes. But by training that stuff out makes my days a lot better. Simple things that we never really focused on in the past.
Well, it's smart, and it aligns with something that Gary Keller teaches in leadership, of that you have to teach people how to think so they can get what they want when they want, right? And all that whole shtick. So good on you for that, and I can't imagine. But you have great wisdom, and I would be surprised when something comes across your desk that you haven't seen before, but I'm sure it does happen.
It does now and again. We deal with a lot of commercial transactions, and that can get a little bit nuanced at times. No, I think now we've pretty much had all the problems that we're going to have come up, and a lot of them are interpersonal problems as well. There's buyers and sellers do get upset with things when they don't really know what should have happened. Mm-hmm. So they're most probably getting wrong advice from someone, where our agent has done absolutely nothing wrong, but they're getting wrong advice from someone else. Right.
So you're saying that's a lack of knowledge from the consumer that causes problems.
Yeah, and I think buyers agents and listing agents, in a perfect world, should spend more time helping the buyer and seller be more educated about the role of transaction and their role in it. We tend to, because we're salespeople, we tend to want to be more helpful to the buyer or seller, and really we can help them by getting them to understand the contract. They don't have to understand it at a high level, but just to understand the pathway of the contract.
A little more of an advisory role ahead of it.
Yeah,
so
because you want to help. You can't just put your arm around them and say, right, see you at the closing table, I'm going to get this sorted for you. Because everyone in that transaction, agent and the principal, has to understand the contract, and they have responsibilities.
Yes, and so that is your main focus. You know the standard and as is FAR bar contract in Florida like the back of your hand, I'm sure.
Yeah, and obviously, that's as I say, I'm in 13 pages. I'm the luckiest man in the world because I just have to know 13 pages of a contract. And obviously, there's all the riders and addenda that goes with it. But I can sound really clever. And whereas an agent isn't just in 13 pages of the contract every day, they're lead generating. They're getting stuff done. And so I look at I always introduce myself as working for the agent. So I think in some cases the agents tend to think of themselves as working for a broker, but I look at it from my mindset as I work for them. So they can call me with the most ridiculous question that I would think would be a ridiculous question, but I'm very mindful of the fact is they're not in those 13 pages all the time.
Right.
And I'd rather they called me and ask me the question than go up to someone in the break room and ask the question and get the wrong answer.
The water cooler talk.
The water cooler talk.
It gets people in trouble.
Yeah, and with the best will in the world, we think we know something, and I'm guilty of that myself. I've had something I've been taught when I was a kid is, things change, and I the one example I always use is repairs in an inspection period. It used to be in the old days, if you'd sent an addendum to the contract asking for repairs, it protected you on an as-is contract. But now that doesn't protect you. You've got to cancel if you don't get that back in time. And so agents that have been in the business 20 years or more may still have that mindset. And a younger agent hears that and then gets themselves into trouble.
Yeah, I want to get into the changes that are happening in the industry, but let's zoom out a little bit for a second because I think we'll have a wider audience listening to this, and let's cater to a newer agent at the moment. 17 ways agents get in trouble. What are some of the top three that we could talk about high here? If you're speaking with a new agent, hey, be wary of these three things.
I think the number one that they should be wary of is you can't practice law. It's a felony in Florida. It's a third-degree felony to practice law without a license. So agents are easily drawn into that. The moment they get their pen and start writing anything, then they're making themselves liable. The dealing with defects after, arguments after closing. And once we've been to the closing table, our job's done. Apart from customer service issues, we can't then still represent them in any dispute that happens because, again, we'll be practicing law without a license. So they're the ones that really can come in hard on them. And then just slightly below that is the disclosure issues. We have a duty to disclose all the defects that we know about in a property that we're selling. And if we don't do that, then we are putting ourselves in great liability. So they're the top. They're the top two.
Yeah. Don't practice law.
Yeah.
And disclose everything.
Disclose.
Everything you know.
Yeah.
And but we're protected if we genuinely don't know.
If you don't know, you don't know.
Right.
There's a recent court case actually which says we don't have to go and crawl through the attic space to see if there's termites up there.
That was something that came down?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they tried to say that the agent had a duty to know this and to discover it. We don't have to do that. And I can't remember the exact what it was, but I read the ruling and just said an agent's there not to inquire, but you can't put your head in the sand.
Right.
That was old. When I first was around realtors, I used to be shocked that people would say, "Well, it's best not to go to the inspection because then you don't know." Well, that's the ostrich defense, And if I was an attorney in that case, so you just chose not to find out,
right?
You'd look very silly.
Yes, for sure. So let's go back a little bit even further because 15 offices, Murray. How did you come into 15 offices? Because I think some people aren't even probably aware that you can be a broker of so many.
Right, you can have multiple licenses in Florida. And there are large brokerages in Florida. Watson Realty, for instance, has a broker with lots of sub-brokers. There's lots of companies out there that have that. So it's not so much about the size of it. It's about the quality of the training and the availability. This is my full-time job. I don't do anything other than work for agents. I'm available from, as I found out, from 6 a.m. till 8 p.m. And I used to have, I have some coaching calls in the morning, and some of them I've done at 5 o'clock because that's my schedule. I enjoy working those hours. I think that agents should have the availability of a broker. Yes, they have the realtor's hotline. They can ask questions, but then they're not their broker. And they cannot advise you on how to deal with a sticky problem in a transaction. They can tell you what the problem is, and they can tell you whether it's right or wrong, maybe. But how do they practically go from A to B in a transaction and protect themselves?
Yeah, one thing I can appreciate about you is that this is all you do is the contract side and keeping us out of trouble. Yep. And you have exposure to so many different types of situations, and not competing in any way. Like you're here just to be an incredible resource.
Yeah, I don't compete.
Yeah.
No, 100% is answering questions, dealing with complaints if there's any complaints. And I sometimes the challenge in my job, the challenge I enjoy, is taking someone who perhaps was disgruntled with their realtor and sending them away best of friends with their realtor because it was their misunderstanding of what should happen rather than the realtor doing the wrong thing, which is pretty much most of the times. And then coaching the agent to be more transparent in the conversation, as we started off with.
And that is the whole thing. So it's how communication is incredibly important.
Yeah.
And setting standards and expectations. Yeah. So let's get into that a little bit. I know most people probably listening to this right now are curious on your take and how you're advising. From what you know so far, because we don't know everything, things haven't come out, but the NAR settlement that's coming, the effects happen next month, being August. We're filming this in July. High level, because I want it to come from out of your mouth. What is changing? What's happening with the NAR settlement?
Well, I think you could put it in one word, and that's transparency. It's transparency from the real estate industry to the consumers. So a seller and a buyer will fully know who's getting paid and what they're being paid for. That's the number one thing. The buyer will know up front what the commission is. Buyers will have to be represented with a written agreement, which in Florida they didn't have to be before. They could be, but they didn't have to be. So as of August the 17th, we will be using the buyer-broker agreement for every time that a house is toured by an agent that's working with a buyer. The other big thing is that the commission fields that are in the MLS are being withdrawn. So an agent won't be able to go onto the MLS and look at what commission's being offered by the seller.
Why do you feel like it was in the settlement they felt that it was important to remove the commission from the MLS?
Well,
how does that doesn't from your point of transparency? And I might know you might not have the answer, but isn't that reverse?
No, I think it's because there would be this was part of a settlement from a lawsuit, and we don't even have to know the facts of the lawsuit. And it's fun. It's a lawyer coffee room. You can sit around and talk about it as much as you like, but the fact is we now have to deliver the agreement, and we will deliver it well. And that is that. I don't care who you are. If you're a saint, if you see a house that's offering 3% and you see a house that's offering 5%, you're going to be drawing your buyer to that house, which is the market. That's the open market. Is there anything wrong in that? Most probably not. But there are some individuals out there that would completely ignore that kind of commission being offered, and it was injurious to the seller, and it was injurious to the buyer. And that's not what we should be focusing on. And when we teach our agents this all the time, our focus is on selling people's houses for them and finding houses for buyers. That's what we're focusing on.
Okay, so
yes, we need to get paid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Services are not free, and I think agents' value is not always appreciated because, to your point before, it's not articulated or communicated well enough up front.
Value. I've sat through a lot of classes on value propositions. I like to hear people that know how to teach that. It's a fantastic thought because everything we do in life, we do equate it with value. When we're picking a vacation, when we're picking a car, whatever we're doing, we're looking for value. And we don't want to, and I think we got into the state in this industry where we weren't really focusing on our value. We were in our business because that's what we were teaching. But I get to deal with agents from all over the state, and I see that their entire reason for getting up in the morning is to get that commission, and it doesn't matter how they get it, and that's wrong.
I agree.
So this will shake that type of agent out.
Just your thoughts on what does this do to the industry, high level? What do you, if you, I know, crystal ball.
Crystal ball. I honestly do believe that it will improve the industry. I think it will professionalize the industry more. It will remove the people that we shouldn't be working with. And that is good. There's still going to be the same amount of houses being sold. There's still going to be the same amount of buyers out there. What we're going to do now is we're going to work for that money. And the people that are left are the ones that are going to work for that money.
I agree. I think this is better. I think this is great.
Yeah.
I was just having a conversation after, and I have some ideas that I want to talk about for things that we said in front of a large audience before we started to record this. But one of our top agents, Monica Crawford, said to her afterwards, I said, if this was always the practice, this would just be how we did business. There would be it wouldn't be a huge thing. To a point, you said in Washington State, they've been operating this way.
Yeah.
And so it only feels sticky because there was some headline news articles that were falsely claiming that realtors aren't going to get paid or that agents won't pay a buyer's commission and things of that nature.
There's all kinds of nonsense out there.
Yeah, as there always is in the media. However, it's just there's a few more pieces of paperwork that we have to do now and a few more articulate conversations to have that show what's going to happen throughout the process.
Yeah. That's it. Professional. You know, when in my listing appointment, if I was selling an agent that was going on a listing appointment, most probably wouldn't be that successful because I'd be great with engineers, most probably, because I want to talk about the process and the black and white, and this is what we do and this is why we do it. And I think agents who can meld that skill with the marketing thing. Marketing's so important. I mean, if you're selling a house, you want that house to be seen by as many people as possible. The beauty of my world is I get to talk to 2,500 agents weekly. You know, I do Zoom casts, and I get out in the offices and talk to them. And it's just it's refreshing to know how, and this is going to be kind of cool as we go forward, that we've just got 2,500 agents in our group alone. And then if you take all the other Keller Williams franchises out there, just how much conversation can be had.
A lot. That's why it's fun to even have this dialogue with you now.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for the time. So going forward, best practices. You're sitting down with a group of agents, and we've talked about the buyer brokerage agreement. That has to be signed. We just talked about this before showing a home.
Yeah, there's two triggers. So the first trigger is that you're working with the buyer. So you're going to be working with a buyer. And the second trigger is that must be signed before you tour a home. So if someone's going to tour a home at an open house, then they're not going to represent them. They're not going to work with that buyer. Come on in. You don't need a buyer broker agreement. But the two triggers are working with them and touring the home.
And that leaves and we talked about this, how a conversation during an open house could change quickly to where buyer brokerage agreement could be needed within the open house.
Yeah, you could be at an open house and the buyer walks in and you know, it happens because people, I'm the same way. You know, if you see people collecting outside a market, you know, you look at them and you kind of decide whether or not you're going to pay them or not.
Right.
What are they collecting for?
Mm-hmm.
You know? So I think that's what happens in an open house. They walk in, they quickly weigh up the agent and think, well, God, you know, no thanks.
Right.
And as they tour the property, they say, man, this guy is good.
Mm-hmm.
And they then decide, yeah, well, I really would like to work with you. Maybe they make the decision that they don't want to work with the listing agent. You know, some people, it's a personal choice, and there's pros and cons for working with a listing agent, and there's pros and cons for having your own representation. Mm-hmm. So they may change their mind. And at that point, when they say, we really would like you, boom, that will trigger the buyer broker agreement being signed.
There, question around compensation agreements being signed from, we talked about this a little bit. So whether compensation is coming from a broker or the seller. Could you go into that a little bit?
Yeah. So from the commission and compensation discussion begins at the listing appointment normally, where the listing agent will say to the seller, and we know that one of the best ways to sell a house is to get as many people as possible to see it. And who is marketing that property? Yes, there's online presence of the property, and people go online and look. But ultimately, to showcase your house the best is to get people inside that, get the feel of the house. And to do that, you would want to encourage agents to bring their buyers, because there are a lot of people out there that want to work with a buyer's agent and who will help them through the transaction. So and I forgot where we were going there, but I went off on a tangent.
No, it's okay. Okay, you're sitting down with the seller and you're asking
so you're
them.
saying to them, commission, how much are you prepared to entice a buyer's agent to bring a buyer along? And they say, I'm not going to say, but however, I am going to pay you X%. And if you want to give some of that X% to a buyer's agent, knock yourself out. That will be one conversation, and then we'd have an agreement between the two brokers. When the buyer's broker appears with the buyer, they would have a conversation with the seller's broker and have an agreement drawn up that they're going to get paid at the successful closing of the property. And the other occasion is if the seller says, no, yeah, I'm quite happy to pay X% for let's put that out there.
So then it's just a difference of whether the
where it's coming from.
Right.
Yeah.
It's minute.
Yeah.
In terms of paperwork, maybe, but checking a box.
Well, it creates a contract,
Right.
a binding contract. So that broker then has to pay the buyer's broker.
Right.
And the seller would have to pay.
Where do you feel like there's going to be the biggest upset, or if we're training this, teaching an old dog a new trick? Where do you think the problem lies, if there is one?
I don't think there is one. I don't know. I've been around real estate, not necessarily working it, but my wife was a broker originally, and I've been around it for 15 years. And if there's ever a profession that has changes, it's this.
It's this one. So it's not. You don't see. I mean, I agree with you. I feel like this industry is ever changing and adapting, and people got to roll with the times. But I guess with change, there's always a little pushback, right? And right now, I think some agents are looking around of like, okay, how are we handling this situation? What do I need to implement?
Yeah.
Most different, I think we talked about a little bit. It's open houses.
Yeah.
That's going to be
that's going to be different. It's just all going to be timing, and I think the pluses are it's very clear now who's working with who and who's protected in the transaction. It's a lot clearer than having unprotected, documented buyer that has no relationship with any agent who would shop around to see what they can get for different buyers agents, causing procuring cause issues on commission disputes. This should eliminate a lot of the procuring cause issues, not all of it, but a lot of it. I think there's when faced with change, people do very different things. Some people are like, great, this is a great opportunity. And there is always an opportunity. I think that was Keller that was talking about that recently, that behind every pain, there is an opportunity. And it's how your mindset is. If you look at this as something that's going to really injure your business, then you're in the wrong business.
I agree. Yeah. I agree. I'm excited to see either agents make more money because they know their value and other agents got out of the business, and it professionalized the industry, as you said. I think it's maybe removes the weekend warrior.
Yeah, and we normally have more of a full-time agent in our group. The more come to training, we have so much training that's there for them, so they're not out there on their own. I don't think we will see much attrition because they've got the resources to handle this. I mean, I don't. My day doesn't. I get one of the texts from all the team leaders in the 15 offices, And every day there is something that someone can go to and learn how to do something that's going to help them grow their business and make them successful. And if they're not dialing into that, then you can lead a horse to water, etc.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, no, it's been interesting to have conversations with the industry outside of our ecosystem because some are definitely more shaken in their boots than others because of not having quality resources.
Yeah, and they should be worried. They should be worried.
If they're not properly trained.
If they're not dialing in, then they should be worried because they will struggle.
Yeah. How do you think this is going to be policed?
Good question. So it's kind of self-policing in as much as the MLS will have a role in buyer broker agreements. They have the power to request a broker give the buyer broker agreement to them. So they can call me up and say, hey, we want to see the buyer broker agreement for this particular transaction, and I have to produce it. It's down to the brokers. We will retain them all for 5 years. And I think we have a clear roadmap by this settlement of what we have to do. If you don't do it, you will be sued. And that's the story. Mm-hmm. But there are people out there that say, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do the shortcut. Well, you're putting yourself at risk. And my theory on everything is we have a set of rules. Mm-hmm. It's very simple to follow them. And if we choose to work around them, then you're in grave danger.
Yeah, I agree, especially now as things are new. Now, do you think anything will change later from a law perspective as they work through and like, ooh, that actually doesn't work as we thought it might have?
Yeah, I think everything does. I think, I've said something in my presentations this last few weeks that I'll go back and say, you know what, we said that then, that's what we knew then, but however, this is what we're saying now. Mm-hmm. And if you're, and I take that part of my job very seriously, that, I want to make sure that the day that something they need to know, that they get that information, they can know where to go for it, and they get it not just in a document, but they get to talk to someone about it, or if they want to talk to someone about it.
No, you've been really good.
Yeah, it'll evolve. The beautiful. I love the law. I mean, it's organic. We live in a society where we have evolving laws that are and regulations that are created by cases, and it's fascinating to me how it works.
Well, it ties into your background. We didn't touch on that, but you were in law enforcement for 15 years.
Yeah. I was an inspector with the British Police and I graduated law school. And I came over here and worked in labour relations for 15 years. So I've had a long, I was going to say a long run-in with the law.
But in a positive way.
Yeah, in a positive way. My father was a police officer and my brothers, so it's been...
You were almost, with that background, perfectly groomed to be in the seat that you are now, which I think is
I think
really cool.
It's all led to that. It's one of those things that you just think to yourself, wow, how did I know that? And it's stuff that I've dealt with in the past. My son and I have had this conversation. I've just had a life of conflict. It's from the moment I put the police uniform on back in that. And I was 16 when I went to police college.
Whoa.
And I did 3 years at the police college. And then went and was a constable for 2 years. And then I was an instructor at the police academy as a sergeant, and a constant conflict.
Constant conflict.
And then in labour relations, conflict.
Yeah, and now you're in conflict and just keeping everyone in the boundaries of a contract.
It is, and life is a conflict. There's always and as I said in the class, one thing I've learned over that 30-year career there, and now a 15-year career in real estate, is that it's, be prepared. If you don't know, just say you don't know. Don't get emotional. Because if anyone that knows what they're doing knows, any good negotiator knows the moment you say something emotional that you've got nothing. There's the whole alibi thing. If you're interviewing a suspect and you say to them, where were you on the night of the 5th? Why do you want to know where I was on the night of the 5th? You know you've got them. Right. If they say, I was at the pub with my wife and my dog and the bartender Bill was talking about football, you know you got a truth. Right. So the moment you've got someone in a transaction on the other side of the transaction, they start to get emotional. You know you've got they don't know what they're doing because they're filling that void.
It's such a powerful lesson in there. I feel like if anyone's listening, rewind 30 seconds and listen to that again. And you've done a great job. And I will say you're a mentor to me in teaching that, even with the contract of your keep your emails a sentence or 2 sentences long.
Yes.
It doesn't need to be
anything more than an inch is a problem.
Right.
You know, it really is. And it becomes a waffle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just filled with all kinds of nonsense. So I love that. You do a great job at coaching of keeping emotions out of it and just staying to the contract.
Yeah.
And I think that's great advice for anyone listening that's in this world, because I think reality TV probably adds to the...
And there's keys, Ryan. The moment I get a phone call, and I have it written on my office wall, I've been in this business X amount of years. If that's the first sentence someone says, you know that you're going to hear a lot of nonsense after that. Don't give me your resume. I don't need to see your resume. I need you to ask me a question. You know, you are unhappy with your transaction, Mr. Seller or Mr. Seller's agent or Mr. Buyer's agent, that you're calling me from another brokerage to complain. I don't need to know how many years you've been in the business. I need to know what you know about this transaction. And your length of service is not a replacement for knowledge.
I love that.
And I say, and I've done it this way for 15 years, and I will say it's been a long time to be doing it wrong.
I love you. Got the good ones.
It goes through my head. It's not come out because I'll be emotional.
Right.
But it goes through my head. Yeah.
Oh, your one-liners. We should create a book of Murray one-liners. They would be really, really good. But valid, I think, as people bring facts to the table and then figure out where the facts line to a contract.
Yeah, it's most probably my brain, because I'm not in. And again, I don't.
You're a third party. You're removed from.
I'm a third party. I can do that. But if you're a buyer's agent, and I know, I've had situations where I know that buyer or that seller's agent or that seller, they're relying on that closing on Friday. One, because they're moving to a new job somewhere and they've got to be, got to be in town. They've got kids that they can't stay in a hotel, dogs.
Things are packed.
Exactly. And then I've got a listing agent who's got a mortgage payment due. There's all their emotions. So I don't say it lightly, and I understand it's emotional. But if you're in a conflict situation, just stick to the facts.
It's great advice. Yeah. Great advice, and it makes you ever more powerful being removed from that, because even if you were in a day-to-day and it was your independent brokerage, you would have maybe even some emotions a little more tied to it.
Yeah, I think exactly. And I speak to a lot of other brokers, and we talk because we have to, because our agents are clashing, and we talk. And I sad to say that there's a lot of brokers out there that are busy selling houses. It's not their job. They run a small brokerage. I sympathise with them, but they have to back their agents because they're basically family members at that stage. And we always talk about us being a family,
right? But
we're a family, and you can sit your family down and have a strong talk with them.
Right. No, absolutely, you have to, because we have a guide that we're following.
Yes.
And you're in line or not, and for us, it's a culture thing. If you're going against the contract, you're not in culture.
Exactly.
Because we have training to keep you in.
Make sure you're doing it right.
Yeah. Is there anything, Murray, to lighten the mood here a little bit, with seeing as many transactions as you have without putting yourself at any jeopardy? Is there any fun stories that come to mind where you're like when you got out of law and got into real estate, you thought there's no way I would ever deal with X, and you have some type of situation, someone who is emotional and brings some type of crazy story to you?
I mean, they all mold into one, but
if you can dovetail that into how do real estate agents get in trouble?
Yeah, I mean,
we don't need specifics, but
no, I just think of I've had horrible conversations on a Monday morning where a seller will call me and say, or a member of the public will call me and say, hey, a realtor walked into my house and just with a family. And started walking around, and I was out the back, and then I came in, and there were some strange people in my house. and there was a deputy sheriff, and he said that they're lucky they didn't get injured.
Right.
But what happened was there was 2 brokerage signs in the street, and he didn't look at the street number. He just saw that brokerage is this listing. Very similar house, went up to the lockbox, opened it up, walked in, and...
but it was the wrong house.
Wrong house.
Oh,
Easily explainable, but dangerous.
dangerous. Wow.
And we have a lot of situations which, could turn out really badly. But everyone gets, one of the horrible things is not being able to solve someone's problem. There's lots of things that we can laugh about, but some of the tragedies of this it's really sad. And you said to lighten the mood, but it really does break my heart when someone's, especially if we've got the listing and the buyer is represented by a bad agent, and the buyer is due to move in on the Friday, and the agent has just disappeared off the face of the earth. No one's communicating. And our poor seller has got trucks lined up outside the house and is waiting to move. And they've been let down, not by our listing agent. They've done everything they can.
But the other side.
But by the other side. That breaks my heart every Friday.
Oh.
And it happens every week.
Every week?
Every week.
Oh.
I have one case at least where the buyer's agent on the other side has completely disappeared or stopped communicating, and we've got to closing and nothing's happening. And I've got sellers crying, and it's horrible. That's a horrible part of it.
Wow.
Lighten the mood, you said.
Well, yeah. Well, yes and no. I feel that. So because agents deal with a lot of stress, a lot of problems, and you deal with that every week. So just a little more on a personal front. How do you deal and cope with stress?
Well, I can't say I don't have stress. I have been in a lot of stressful situations in my life, and very dangerous situations, and I don't take that lightly. I very much am a here and now kind of person. I'm very lucky to have a fantastic family. I talk to my family. I've got 4 kids. I talk to them pretty much every day. We have a group chat on texts and stuff. And that is where I find some peace. My married kids, I got 2 of them that are married. I say to them, there's always going to be trouble, not within the marriage, but with everything else outside. Once you got married, it's very different to being single. Mm-hmm. And I've always taught them, and something I heard years and years ago from a guy that I used to work with in labor relations. He used to just call it a 4-wall. He lives a 4-wall life. And then I teach that to my kids. Is I worry, what stresses me out is what happens within my 4 walls. Everything else I don't care about. Really, I will look after my 4 walls. I'll worry about that. Then if I've got time to worry about the next door neighbours, I will. And then I take out the worry. Mm-hmm. I don't let myself get distracted by what's going on in the country. I don't watch the news that much. I look, Morning Brew in the mornings is enough for me. I read a quick synopsis of what's going on. I do think that really grounds me. I've got one of the best wives in the world. I have to say, she's a business coach. She is just so laid back. Nothing phases her. She's always got a solution for anything that will come along. And she dealt with the kids as they were growing up. I was traveling around the world for 3 years. I had offices in Singapore, Melbourne, Australia, London. I was going on a Sunday night to New Zealand or Singapore, and she was bringing up the three girls at that time, and she just did it without missing a beat. And so, yeah, it's great. And she can. We don't talk about real estate very much. She's not in the real estate business now. She was a broker years ago. Mm-hmm. We don't talk about real estate very much. If something funny has happened during the day, I'll say to her, "You never guess what." Mm-hmm. But she'll say, "Yeah, I can because I was a broker."
Right, she's seen it too.
Yeah, she's seen it as well.
Too. Oh, well, that's. I think there's a great lesson in there, and that's why I ask, because with your great wisdom and things that you've dealt with, I'm always curious, even outside of it. Just to pick
I love sailing.
Just to pick a great mind.
So love getting on a boat and sailing. And
I haven't sailed yet, but I had a conversation with someone actually on a podcast, Elijah Ramsey. I don't know if you know. And he says about how meditative it is. Do you feel like that? Because you have to be present or you're going to crash the boat.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful feeling from, getting from A to B without spending a penny on gas. And it's like gliding. People who do gliding, it's the same. You're using just the power of the wind to move from A to B. There's a lot of zen with sailing, and there's no noise other than the wind. It's beautiful. Normally, I have Santana blaring on the boat.
Yeah. Well, I like that. And I think it's important to just highlight those things because as you do deal with a lot, it's always curious of what great. And I would consider you're a great mind and come with great wisdom and a great leader. I mean, to have that what you do, you have to show up as a leader. And I'm always curious of how people find their balance or grounding in their
sailing,
life.
riding a motorbike because no one can talk to me.
Right.
I enjoy going for a motorbike ride, and then I just put the phone, do it on an early Sunday morning, put the phone away, and just go and unwind.
Yes. It's important. As we wrap this up, is there any message or any resource that you can provide for agents of where they should go with everything happening?
Yeah, I mean the advice is don't panic, stay calm, and read the NAR frequently asked questions on the NAR website. It answers everything that they could possibly want to know about the settlement and how they're going to do business. They've got so many resources. They can go to you. They can come to me. There's no judgment, and that I think is key. Is just do business as normal. Yeah,
and don't be afraid to ask questions. No. This is a time that unifies the industry. I think as we come together.
And please stop. When you call me, never say sorry to bother you. I look forward to the next call. I honestly do. And someone says, I go to offices and they go, I call you all the time. And I go, I can't remember the last time you spoke to me. Because they think they call you all the time.
Right.
But they don't.
Yeah.
They call
once a month.
Once a month, maybe. And that's great. Call me. I really do look forward to the next call because it's like a challenge. And it's interesting. And also, selfishly, it's really fun to help people.
Well, it is.
Yeah,
it is.
I love it when someone calls me back and says, hey, you never guess what? We got that closed. I am so happy about that. It's a win.
It is a win. Yeah. And your guidance definitely helps. And so just want to say thank you. Thank you for coming in today. Thank you for doing this. It's been really cool, really awesome to pick your mind here and help. And if you're not within the Keller Williams ecosystem, I mean, today we had an audience brought to come listen to you speak like I've never seen before, a standing room only. So it was really awesome, and it just shows the great work that you do. So appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you. If you're still with us, like, subscribe, share with a friend. Go read the NAR FAQs. Keep yourself out of trouble. And if you're not in our world and you need great guidance, come to Keller Williams and learn from the best. So thank you, Murray. Appreciate you.
Take care, Ryan.
Yes.
Bye.
That was good.